How did you feel afterwards? How did you recover?
Honestly, I mean, it didn't take me long to recover down there, but I was definitely exhausted. Like 14 hours of constant is tiring. I felt like I'd been hit by a bus, honestly. Like, it was more on my actual body was just aching.
Oh my
But
God, I
yeah.
can't even imagine. Like, I feel like my legs get tired after like 7 minutes.
Are you still planning to do what I've called the 1,000 man challenge?
The man challenge. Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah. So my assistant's currently going through the 5,000 applications we have. They'll be getting, honestly, as quick as possible in, out. I just want a conveyor belt. We're maybe thinking most, it'll be 17 hours.
So I saw the video of after you did the 100.
Yeah.
And you actually seemed quite distressed.
It was very stressful. I was extremely overwhelmed. A super long, hard, stressful day. And then a camera crew probing me with questions for an hour. You know, that was kind of, if I'm honest, I wish I'd kind of set a boundary, because that was kind of the last thing I wanted, was just someone hammering me with questions after completing a really long, hard day. It's personally not how I would have told the narrative or how I would have edited it, but it definitely made for a very interesting watch. Got ran through by 101 men, and my eyes are still recovering from all the bodily fluids that went in them. She'd like disassociate and be like, you know, like it's not like normal sex at all.
Lily Phillips is a 23-year-old woman who has recently made headlines for having sex with 100 men in one day, with the goal of doing the same challenge later on, but with a greater number, 1,000 men. While most coverage of the documentary are honest about the experience and focus on Lily, a New York Post article somehow finds a way to focus on the men involved, because of course they were lonely, maladjusted, and therefore should receive pity. Even if the article itself does not outright say so, it certainly implies these things. Titled, "OnlyFans Models Sex Marathon Stunt Reveals the Desperate Loneliness of Men," its author, Carol Markowitz, implores readers to please consider the men. She writes, "At the start of the documentary, Phillips is smiling, bubbly, sharing what she will wear for her big day. At the end, she is crying as she describes how robotic the faceless sex made her feel, her eye twitching as she talks about dissociating to endure it. But we don't know what the men are thinking or feeling about their side of the experience, because the filmmaker never explores that. And we expect men to just be okay, always, despite a lot of evidence that they clearly are not. And indeed, many critics sought and found a villain, the men." Further, she critiques Julie Bindel as she writes, "Any man involved in the torture of this woman should be locked up," Julie Bindel, founder of the Lesbian Project, posted on X. Suddenly, the old feminist cries of "my body, my choice" didn't matter. "The men did this to her," went this strain of online discourse. "The woman who planned it, set it up, participated in it willingly, and profited from it, bore no blame. No, those 101 men should have refused to join her." Firstly, Bindel is well known for her opposition to pornography and prostitution. Of all things to mention in the article, the choice to focus on her founding of the Lesbian Project feels like an attempt to delegitimize her critique by suggesting that it's related to sexuality, as it is common to accuse lesbians of being man-haters and unable to understand the experiences of bisexual or straight women. Secondly, just as a person can choose to self-harm, it does not negate our obligation to not harm others, and further does not make that action beyond reproach. Finally, most of those men refused to be interviewed. They knew what they were doing was wrong, they knew that it was shameful, and they didn't want their image out there.
I'm sleeping with 100 guys in a day.
Have you done anything to make sure there's not someone with a criminal record, for example, coming down?
We actually have not, no.
This is where the applications are coming through.
Where the guys are messaging.
I guess I'm here for the thing. I never really think about things before I do them, so I've just kind of do them and then think, oh, you know, was that okay?
How long have you known or been a fan of Lily Phillips?
Since the beginning, I would say.
Did you ever think you'd be able to have sex with her?
No, never.
And today you did?
Yes.
Do you know how many guys have gone before you?
No idea. No idea.
Yeah, like, is that one?
Well, look, yeah, well, I don't really know. You know, I just thought.
Are you happy you did it?
A little bit. I'm just a bit nervous. I'm really find out. my dad and kicked me out straight away.
Really?
Yeah.
Further, Lily seemed unprepared for the reality of such a challenge. As noted in an article on the Rolling Stone, she left STI tests up to the individuals. She says in the doc that she prioritized participants who provided medical documentation, and that she seemed surprised when peers told her that HIV could be transmitted via ejaculate in the mouth. And it's true, she broke from industry precautions that are typical. She didn't have any of the participants conduct STI tests through whatever the UK's version of our PASS system is. She used condoms for vaginal sex, but not oral sex. She didn't run background checks the way escorts would when sleeping with civilians. She didn't have participants shower beforehand. And she used an Airbnb, even though it could well get her banned from the service. If anything, this reveals her youth and inexperience, and what happens when content creators eschew the decades of trial and error that go into establishing standards for such heavily regulated industries.
Not for the weak, girls. If I'm honest, it was hard. I don't know if I'd recommend it.
Why not?
I think if you're a different...
I wanted to have a conversation about Lily Phillips and kind of sex work on this platform as a whole. And I held off because I've been trying to figure out what my full opinions are. And I don't know if I know, but seeing this video yesterday really shifted my perspective on her. And I'm glad I held off on speaking and kind of trying to unpack my thoughts, because seeing this, and I haven't watched the full documentary yet and I want to, I see someone very different than I feel like she presents herself to be. I think there's something really interesting in the way she separates herself from the weak girls and whatever that means, and kind of her kind of putting in her head that she can handle it, she can do this, it's fine. She says she wouldn't recommend it, but then why does she do it for herself? And it's almost like, is this some sort of form of self-harm? Is this some form of, you know, she feels like this is what she has to do? Does she feel like this is kind of where she finds worth? I don't know. I'm not trying to put a judgment on her. More than anything, I feel a lot of kind of sympathy for her in this moment. And I know a lot of people are shouting, saying, well, she put herself in that. And it's like, okay, I can still feel bad for her, because there isn't, I just cannot sit here and think she's comfortable and excited with this. I don't know whether it's feelings of shame, embarrassment. I don't know. And I don't want to be putting that on her. If I'm trying to think, would I feel that way? I don't know. I just think there's a lot to unpack here.
Just one in, one out, like it feels intense.
Like more intense than you thought it might.
I think there's something really interesting when women feel like they are able to handle all these difficult things, but then always kind of say, oh, I wouldn't recommend or let other people do it, because why treat yourself harsher and have different standards for yourself than others? And what does that mean? And how do you feel about yourself internally? And I don't say that in a way of judgment to be like, oh, she don't love herself. I don't know how she feels, but I'm concerned for how she feels about herself with that. And I think one thing I've always struggled with the idea of sex work being empowering and liberating for women is, I feel like at the end of the day, you're still a product. You're still a product for someone else to consume. And that objectification is where I've always struggled to kind of see that perspective. I don't judge women who engage in sex work, but I also think sometimes it's dangerous to have the conversation as if it's this kind of fun, frivolous thing to do, when there are a lot of women who they're in danger because of the work they engage in. Some of them don't have a choice. They have to be involved in that work because they have no other alternative. So I've always struggled with this idea of this kind of liberating, kind of fun, like, oh, we do this because ha ha ha, it's just a little cheeky laugh. And I don't think, after seeing this, I don't even think it's a little cheeky laugh for her. I think she's able to put that on the internet because it gains her a lot of followers and views to kind of be like, yeah, own this. But I don't think she really believes that. And I hope she's okay. Because at the end of the day, I really mean it when I say I don't judge or look down on women who engage in sex work at all, because that goes against everything I believe in and my essence. I do struggle with how sometimes sex work is placed on this platform as this kind of fun, little easy thing that people do. And I think this clip, and I'm going to go watch the documentary later, and maybe I'll have more thoughts to unpack. But yeah, I don't know what to think. And I would love to know what other people think, because we can unpack, because I still don't know where I stand.
Ay, ay, ay.
To what extent does Lily deserve sympathy? One can argue that only a broken or desperate person would be inclined to do such a stunt, but with the amount of money she will receive for it and the required continually upped ante needed to stay relevant in a now flooded field, it is hard to deny that some might find the financial benefit worth the personal gain. Her stunt and publicity feeds into the lie that OnlyFans is profitable and easy, ignoring, of course, that as of 2024, the average OnlyFans creator makes only about $120 to $145 a month, about $1,700 per year, and that's before tax, of course. The top 1% of creators earn about a third of all the money on the platform. People in the porn industry tend to be from vulnerable populations, as one recent study found. During childhood, performers were more likely to have experienced rape, poverty, or having been placed in foster care. They were also more likely to have been forced into sex as adults, reported living in poverty, and having experienced domestic violence within the past 12 months. Overall, this study finds significantly worse mental health in performers and higher rates in self-reported depression compared to other women of similar age. Many men enjoy using examples like Lily to confirm the dehumanization of women, illustrating how pornography leads to the degradation of women. They are unsympathetic to the reality of her experience, in part because she continues to perpetuate the lie that it's empowering and that her value hinges on sexual availability to men. In turn, this feeds the belief that since she consented to one sexual act, she gets what's coming to her. In this case, ejaculation on her face was not allowed, but several men did anyway, hurting her eyes and potentially exposing her to HIV. This is outright sexual assault, but she can never admit this because of her reliance on the men who did that to her as a source of income and validation. Some women have supported her right to choose, or attempt to cast Lily's harrowing experience as being a lesser horror. They cite nonsensical words like whorephobia, as if such a thing is any different than regular misogyny, or otherwise love to repeat the mantra of, she chose it. Others point out the role that glamorizing so-called sex work may have played in her decision, and the distinct possibility that she herself had been a victim of abuse, given the strong correlation and her parents' apparent support of her career path.
By saying this is all about her agency and her sexual pleasure, and what can women expect if they want sexual liberation, and then complain about the effects of something like 100 men penetrating you. If this gimmick saw the light of day with the 1,000 men in 24 hours, she would be dead.
She noted that her supportive parents are proud of her and truly aware of the unconventional career path she's chosen. Lily, who speaks with her mom over the phone every day, revealed, "My parents knew straight from the start what I was doing. I was very upfront about it. Obviously, at the start, they were a bit apprehensive because they wanted me to be safe and they wanted me to make good decisions and stuff like that. I just think I can't hold myself back because I'm scared of what other people might think." What obligation do we have to our fellow human? Why are the only discussions of the punters involved nameless, faceless, or in sympathy, and yet Lily is the center of the discussion? Part of this is due to her desired notoriety, yes, but also from a refusal to call out so-called sex positivity for what it is and who it benefits: men. This, dear viewers, is where we part. This story is one that I find very difficult because, on one hand, nobody who is sane, no woman who is sane and who has had sex at least one time, is going to concede to have sex with 101 men without some great incentive. She's been pressured, drugged, she really needs the money. And to be fair, the amount of money she made off of this, she could retire off of. The thing is, Lily came from a middle-class household. She never had to do this to begin with. I think it was the lie of sex positivity that led her to this. And even now, when she talks about it, she's kind of avoiding like the fact that she dissociated. That's not a normal response during sex. She's ignoring the fact that she's not really finding sexual pleasure out of this or physical pleasure. It's just, I'm being found attractive and that's the thing that I like. And of course, the men who are involved, they know that it's shameful to take part in this, but they don't want to be judged for it. So many of them refused to be filmed, didn't want to go on record, didn't want to have an interview. But obviously, the discussion around this whole thing is going to linger a lot longer than the actual porn film itself. And on one hand, she's my age. She's my age. I'm astounded that we're the same age. So she's pretty young, and she has a lot of time to regret this. Most porn actors do not last very, very long. So I reckon we'll probably see a reversal of this. This is so great. I had so much fun within a couple years. But how many girls are going to join OnlyFans because they see the amount of money she makes, or they think that it's glamorous? Because the thing is, we're in the era now where, like, girls who are young teens, who are tweens, who saw this stuff growing up, are at legal age now, and a lot of them are joining OnlyFans. And they're doing more and more extreme things because you have to when the market is flooded. I'm not sure which order these videos are going to come out, but the same thing goes for organ donation. If we were to say, okay, you can sell an organ, but only 5 people a year can do it, then those 5 kidneys are going to be worth a lot more than if we say anyone can sell an organ. And it's just basic economics. The value of it goes down. So if you want to create value, you have to do harder and harder, hardcore or niche things. And I think a lot of these women and girls on OnlyFans, they think it sounds good because it's just masturbating at first. But as someone who has, I prefer to just I think a lot of these girls, they think it's going to be a fun performing thing. They're going to feel sexy. They're going to have gifts, and they don't think about the long-term effects of what they're doing. Not to them and not to what they're doing for other girls and women. The more that we normalize the idea that a woman can be bought, the more that men will have the idea that they can buy women. That then every time someone is sexually harassed, well, that's no longer sexual harassment. As long as they add money to it, it's a job offer. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.